Hey everyone, we're going to get started in a few minutes. Just give everyone some time to roll in. If you're just joining, we're going to start in a few minutes, just waiting for some more people to come in. We are going to start in about 2 minutes. And just this will be recorded, and you'll get the recording from your account manager after the fact. We are going to get started in just 1 minute for those of you in the Q&A. Okay, I'll trust everyone can hear me. Thank you everyone for joining today's Solution Spotlight on achieving operational excellence in strategic planning. Today's session will be focused on the healthcare and life sciences space. My name is Jillian Vieira. I'll kick things off today. I've been at Smartsheet for about 6 years now. I work specifically with our healthcare and life sciences customers. I'm really looking forward to showing you all what we have prepared. So first and foremost, this is a quick legal disclaimer. We understand that some of you might be Smartsheet shareholders. Some of the stuff today we may discuss may be forward-looking, and we do not advise you to make financial decisions based on what you hear today. We want this to be interactive and really resonate with everyone. So please, throughout the session, utilize the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. We'll have Chaz from our team manning that section. We'll also save some time at the end to go through a more extensive Q&A, and we'll be pausing in between each section too, but that's a great place to start. So for today's agenda, I'll start with some introductions, just introducing the team and what we're looking to accomplish. Then we'll discuss some common challenges that are being faced by the healthcare and life sciences space within today's dynamic environment. We'll dive into how Smartsheet is addressing these challenges with our customers. And finally, we're going to go into a demonstration of accreditation management, operational excellence within a PMO, committee management, sourcing and procurement with vendor scorecards, and finally, mergers and acquisitions. Then if we have time, we'll circle back and we'll talk about some real world applications of all this within a few specific customers. And then again, we'll save some time at the end for a more extensive Q&A if necessary. So before we start with any content, I want to introduce the team joining me today. Each of them brings valuable experience working with some of our largest healthcare and life sciences customers across Smartsheet. And we have Angie on the line. She's a senior solutions engineer. We have Katie Reed, who is actually a former customer within the healthcare space and now a senior solutions engineer. And we have Nate, who will be a solutions engineer. And as I mentioned, Chaz will be on the line. You might hear from him, but he'll be manning the Q&A. I do not have a picture of him today. I'm sorry, Chaz. Okay, so the healthcare and life sciences space, you're really at the forefront of delivering critical services, yet you face a number of complex challenges that can really hinder your ability to meet strategic goals and deliver quality care. Now I'm going to dig into some of the most pressing issues that we're hearing from our customers in these sections. So managing accreditations involves keeping a lot of documents audit ready, tracking critical milestones, and this can be really difficult with the constantly evolving regulations. With overall portfolio management, aligning projects to your strategic goals while ensuring visibility into progress and resource planning is obviously essential. Integrating diverse data and managing compliance can be challenging and very time-consuming. For mergers and acquisitions, standardizing and maintaining consistency is crucial. Integrating systems, ensuring data security, and overcoming siloed communication are significant hurdles that we're hearing from our customers in this space. For sourcing and procurement, effective vendor management and preventing project overruns is critical. Enhancing vendor compliance, reducing errors, and improving efficiency through automation can streamline these procurement processes, but oftentimes require robust tools. Overall, overcoming siloed operations and facilitating communication across departments are key for efficiency. Achieving integration across systems and enhancing transparency are essential, but again, they can be challenging. According to a study done by Deloitte, these challenges are further intensified by increasing patient numbers, workforce shortages, and evolving health regulations. Digital transformation and a robust project management tool are crucial for navigating these complexities and delivering exceptional care. So now we're going to talk about how Smartsheet is addressing these and what you'll ultimately see today in the demonstration. So Smartsheet is addressing these challenges by providing you with a centralized platform for managing complex processes. We will enhance project visibility and resource management. We will offer solutions for effective integration, strategic alignment, and collaboration in M&A. We will deliver visibility and analysis for informed strategic planning. And overall, we'll just show you how this transformation is really crucial to improving overall patient care and operational efficiency within your business. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to Katie to kick off the demonstration.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jillian. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screen pulled up for everybody. All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending today. We have some really exciting content that we're excited to showcase for you. Today, we're going to be spicing things up by comparing seemingly two different worlds, cooking and strategic planning and operations excellence. So just like crafting a delicious meal, achieving your strategic goals requires the right ingredients, timing, and visibility. So get ready to explore how your kitchen skills can translate into mastering business operations, ensuring that everything and everyone comes together seamlessly, leaving everybody satisfied. So today I wanted to showcase how we're going to tie all of these different components together. So from an organizational perspective, you have a variety of different business units or service lines that are all charged with very important tasks. So how can we wrap these up, be able to monitor and track the execution of these activities while still ensuring that we're achieving those strategic objectives? So today, we're going to look at how we're tying all of these components together with a focus on our safety and compliance team in terms of managing accreditations and certifications. We'll take a look at how that can feed into our PMO, our project and portfolio management, and how we can align the right stakeholders with committee management. We'll then also kind of take a look at some of how all these play together in terms of vendor management. So as we think about taking on projects, we need vendors to help us execute. And so we want to ensure that we are picking the right vendor to help us achieve that objective. So we have some other folks on the line that will be diving deeper into what that vendor management system looks like as part of a Smartsheet solution. And of course, as we think about continued growth or expanding our capabilities, mergers and acquisitions is a very complex thing in which we need to maintain that strategic level of visibility, but we also need a way to manage all the complex work. So again, my colleagues will be diving deeper into those. Today, I'm going to kick us off and we'll talk about safety and compliance from an accreditation management perspective. Now, as I'm looking here at this leadership dashboard, this dashboard is my central source of truth. So from an executive leadership perspective, I can look across all of these different priorities, all of these different programs, and understand what's going on, where I need to take action, and then also start to understand how the activities my team is doing are impacting our strategic imperatives. So from here, I can either quickly take action on any high priority metrics, such as near misses, or if we have severity ratings that are in the high level, we want to be able to prioritize those while also understanding patterns and what has already been resolved and where our teams have resolved some of those issues. So from here, I get that 10,000-foot view, but I also have the ability to dig in deeper. So if I really wanted to focus in and understand where are we as part of our accreditation process, I can easily click into different aspects of our dashboard. And this is going to display a more focused view on this particular program's performance. So at this level, you can correlate this to maybe a program or a service line or a product line. It's really giving you a more narrow view on one specific area of your business, while still being able to roll the important metrics up to our executive leadership. So we're digging in deeper to really understand questions like how many accreditations or certifications are we currently applying for? Do we have any upcoming site visits? So we can track, whether we know when those visits are happening, or if, it's joint commission and we only have a window, we can easily track those critical dates and ensure that our team is all aligned and on the same page. So again, whether you're going after, as we'll talk about today, joint commission accreditation, whether it's ISO, whether it's magnet, whether it's a laboratory accreditation or certification, this process is going to be similar in terms of how we think about managing those milestones that go into not just managing survey findings, but the application process, as well as keeping up that continuous readiness mindset across your organization. So really here, we want you to be able to look across all of your certifications, your entire portfolio, and be able to understand where tasks may be at risk. We want to understand how this distribution looks across, whether they're official surveys or whether they're mock surveys that we're conducting and managing internally. So again, this is intended to give you that centralized view and be able to start seeing patterns and trends. So benchmarking, being able to compare your performance against whether it's your strategic goals or whether they're national benchmarks. Or this could even be historical performance. So we want to centralize and help you visualize this information, because as we'll take a look at in a few moments, you'll be able to start taking this important data that you're collecting and use that to inform your strategic planning process and really empower your team members to help identify those areas where things are working well or where there's an opportunity for improvement. So as we think about the certification process, while each certification will have its own set of standards and its own requirements, there is oftentimes overlap in some of the information that they require. And healthcare organizations being able to manage credentials, being able to access and pull up policies is very critical. And so this dashboard is going to centralize all of those aspects, so everybody knows exactly where to go to access this information. So for example, at this level, I'm able to see all of my policies, and I can even track them by the status. So as we're prepping for a site visit, or as we're just going through that intercycle preparation, we can easily track and ensure that we're reviewing policies within a specified time period. So you'll notice here that I have a link. So I can either link out these policies to an existing purpose-built, maybe policy management system or SharePoint site. But Smartsheet will also allow you to attach these policies directly to these items. So again, we're really trying to centralize all of this data. So when time is at its most critical, everyone can quickly access all of the important information that they need. So again, just different ways for us to visualize and understand all of the milestones. In particular, for those organizations where you're managing multiple certifications or accreditations, we can easily be able to track those and those key dates while also visualizing and understanding where these certifications may overlap. So again, better visibility, a better understanding, and an easy way to keep everyone on track. For today, I'm going to use the example of Joint Commission to kind of walk us through some of the different components to managing accreditation or certification work in Smartsheet. Again, want to call out there that while this is very specific and we're using Joint Commission, this can be easily tailored to the unique requirements for different certifications. And so as we look at this, I encourage everybody to think about some of the components that you're seeing here and how some of these might be applicable for your current operations. So as we take another step down, we were looking at our entire program view of our certifications and accreditations. Now I am focused specifically on Joint Commission. This is going to allow me to create visuals and tracking mechanisms that are unique to the requirements for this particular accrediting body. I am also able, again, to start tracking performance over time against whether it's my performance the previous year or whether those, again, are national benchmarks. So we can start to understand where there may be gaps, and then we can start to leverage this information, share it with leadership, and use that as an input into our strategic planning process. One other thing that I think is especially important to call out here is clear lines of accountability. So when you are in the middle of a survey, or even if you're preparing to go for recertification, you have a variety of stakeholders involved in this process. We need to pull data and information across various business units or service lines. And so establishing that clear accountability is absolutely critical. And these dashboards, everything that I'm showing you today, will not only make that information visible and ensure that everybody knows who to contact, but this is also how we can set up automated notifications to notify the right people. When we think about the application process and making sure folks are completing their tasks on time, having these automations in conjunction with dashboards is extremely powerful, and it will really help ensure that folks are staying on track, especially when everyone is still working their day jobs and they're focused on providing patient care or producing life-saving medical equipment or drugs. And so this will really ensure that we can easily track those milestones, as well as ensure that we can track the findings for survey and promote that continuous readiness mindset. So here you'll notice that there are different sections to this particular dashboard that are being fed by a variety of reports. What I wanted to call out, particularly when it comes to the surveying process, is that we know that time is critical. We know that timelines are short and that you have a very short time frame in which to show evidence of compliance. So communicating this information early in the survey process is absolutely critical. So what I wanted to call out is that Smartsheet has a mobile application, and we've seen a lot of our customers have great success when it comes to leveraging communications in real time. So as your escorts are going with your accrediting bodies during the on-site visits, you can use this mobile app to not only submit potential findings or communicate with your leaders and other key stakeholders, but you can also attach pictures, right? So a picture is often worth 1,000 words. And this is also why I think those refrigerators that allow you to see into the fridge from a mobile device are so popular, because it takes the guesswork out of it. When we want to ensure that we're on point and we're able to resolve things before they become larger issues, having the ability to attach a photo to clearly indicate what that issue is and where it was located can ensure that people are able to take action quicker. So again, we'll notice here that we are grouping this based off of the levels from these findings. We have the capability to score them. So based off of, in this particular case, the severity and scope, we're able to automatically determine if this is going to be a higher issue and escalate that, but also ensure that we're able to pull up those findings for future surveys. So we're able to ensure that, and we'll see this in just a moment, that we can track all of these and ensure we have a way to pull those up for future audits, for future surveys. But this is also going to give us visibility not into just, hey, where are we seeing issues, but opportunities for us to amplify what works well. So we'll take a look at how we can start to aggregate all of this information and build a knowledge repository that can then be helpful as we think about changing some of our OKRs, as we think about focusing on new areas to exploit things that are working well, or as opportunities for new projects. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a dive in. So again, this is still intended as a way for our accrediting directors, our safety and compliance team members, anybody that is working within this space to aggregate this information so we can start to understand patterns and share information, as well as leverage the information we have here and ensure that the goals and key results that we've set for ourselves reflect the actual reality of what's going on the ground. Okay. So you'll see here, these are just different ways that we can start to visualize and understand, are there particular site locations? Are there particular departments that we're seeing higher trends? This may warrant us to maybe shift focus and focus on opportunities to resolve some of these issues. But it also allows us to not have to recreate the wheel every time. So from here, you'll see that I have a report, and as these findings are being resolved and our teams are identifying what is the actual root cause that is causing these issues, we can track this and make it visual. So as we need to respond quickly to findings, we can leverage things that have already worked for other teams. We can use this to help mitigate the possibility of something happening in the future. So in this particular case, we can take a look at how this fits and how these findings are actually tying into some of our OKRs. So we can actually, as we start root causing and triaging and taking actions against some of these items, we can start to understand and visualize how these changes are impacting those goals and key results. And so from these reports, I can gain an understanding maybe if something is not a high issue, it's more of something that's at risk. So for example, if our med storage compliance, maybe we've noticed that our dispensing cabinets trend on the higher temperature monitoring. So not quite over the threshold where we're not meeting the standard, but maybe it's something that we're aware of and we want to proactively address it by upgrading all of our cabinets. We can leverage this information here and submit that as a project request in this form. So again, as we start to think about how we're tying all of these components together, we're leveraging the information that we've collected during these very long and time-consuming processes and using that to inform strategy, as well as, hey, these are projects, larger initiatives that we need to take. And as we think about some of the anticipated impacts, compliance is one piece, but as we start to think about it and collaborate with others, in addition to meeting compliance requirements, if we do upgrade these, it could also potentially have a positive impact by reducing the amount of wasted medication. And this is worth calling out that, what you're seeing here in these forms, this is where we really work with you to understand what those OKRs, what your strategic goals are. So that way the solution can be tailored to the unique requirements of your organization. What our goal for you is to understand how we can help tie together all of these pieces. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and drop in my standard. And I'm going to go ahead and submit this form. Now I'm going to transition us back to our leadership dashboard, and kind of before we go into after a form submitted, how would that impact our PMO office or our directors of PMO to be able to process and kick off an initiative that was submitted by our safety and compliance team. So before we dive into that, I wanted to pause and see, Chaz, were there any questions for us in the chat that we wanted to address now?
Hi, Katie. Perfect timing. I was actually mid-answering one in text, but there are a few that would be really good live. Two questions that are about the solution that you've constructed and are demonstrating today. So one of the questions was about, is this available as a template or must it be manually built? My answer so far was that it was configured by you and not readily available for download, but might be put together in partnership between our services and our clients. I wanted to check to see if any parts of this were sourced from our solution center that customers might use. I'm also noticing Angie has a hand up, but I can hold that for a second. Katie, was anything made from the solution center as part of this demo?
That is a great question. So the accreditation management piece is not currently available. This is something newer. And because it is tailored to the unique requirements of our organizations, we have not templated this particular initiative, but definitely worth having a combination, as Chaz said, because this could be something that we could work with you in conjunction with services to get you a template that you're able to use and replicate. Great question.
And then Katie, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Angie if you wanted to add anything in there.
No, apologies. That was an accidental hand up.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, well, Katie, one more question before we get on to the next topic. I've got two people asking a really similar question. One was asking, when they get to the sheet level, can you emphasize any key fields that drive these metrics? And I realize we're about to move on, so maybe we can illustrate this in the next section. There was also, will we be able to get a look behind the curtain to get a view of technically how the data is connected? We've stayed mostly at the dashboard level, so there's definite curiosity to hear a bit more about what's under the hood, though maybe you're getting to that in another portion.
That is also a great question, Chaz. And I'll definitely call out in the next section as we dive a little bit deeper into the sheet level, how these metrics are being summarized to the portfolio level. And again, as we see some of these metrics in our dashboard, again, I encourage folks to think about Smartsheet as a pyramid, right? So everything you see in these dashboards is being powered by the sheets and reports. So sheet is our foundational layer. So this is where all of this information is going to live. So our application checklist would live in a sheet, and then we can use a report to pull those key milestones and put that on our dashboard. The same thing, for example, here with our metrics that you're seeing, our safer metrics, is essentially taking the categorized findings and summarizing them so we get that 10,000-foot view of where these categories are falling based off of our survey results. And we'll take a deeper dive into the sheet level so you can get an understanding how the sheet is powering all of the metrics you're seeing here. So great questions. Anything else before we dive into our PMO aspect?
Nope, Katie, go ahead and dive in. I'm just going to continue handling questions in the chat. I'll interrupt you again later.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we took a look at how we can leverage Smartsheet, the automations to send notifications, how we can use reports and our dashboards to visualize and understand the patterns when it comes to the outputs of our surveys and overall accreditation process. As part of that, we took a look at identifying a future need to upgrade some of our med dispensing cabinets. And we submitted a form, which is then in turn going to go to our PMO team. So at a high level, I can get an understanding of, based off of the submissions that are coming in, how these projects are being allocated across the different teams, how many projects are in flight, what's at risk. So again, high-level metrics that help us understand all of the moving components and be able to start to tie them all together. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at what it looks like after somebody has submitted the request. So switching gears here, I'm now going to assume the role of a PMO director, who would then be responsible for reviewing the request, ensuring the appropriate team members are allocated to this project, and kicking off our project. So we'll just give this just one moment while we wait for everything to load up here. All right, and so what you're going to see here is actually a new view that was recently released. It's called Board View. For those of you who are familiar with Smartsheet, this is a more modern version of our card view. And so this is going to give you more control. So you'll see here that maybe as I'm going through some of these new requests, I'm not going to lose sight of what's actually being actively reviewed, what's approved, and maybe requests that we need additional information. Okay. So you'll see here that the request I submitted for my upgrade has actually been submitted. And so this view is going to easily enable me to toggle and drag and drop, very similar to the experience in card view for those who are familiar, as this request moves throughout the process. So I do want to call out that this is my intake sheet. So I'll switch to grid view in just a moment, but this is just a different way of viewing these sheets that contain all of this information. It's these sheets where we can start to summarize and break down how we're grouping different requests. So here I can quickly get metrics in terms of what's been submitted, what's slated for review, and what's actively in flight and approved. So as these requests come in, we can very easily get additional detail regarding this particular request. What's worth calling out here is this new board view is going to allow you to maintain sight of this view, and we can still go through. So as I think about validating whether Katie has the capacity to take this work on, so maybe changing my view so I can look at my project manager's workload, I'm not losing sight of this particular request. So I can easily toggle between these views, get an overall understanding of who's working on what before I make those final assignments. This will also allow me to start to weight my projects. And when I say weight, some of you may already be doing this today. Some of you may actually be using weighted criteria to provide a more objective priority for your projects. And this is very simply done by determining what criteria is most important to your organization. And from there, we can weight the importance of these projects. Because this particular project is coming from our accreditation team, and it's something that we think we need to complete in order to ensure compliance, we can weight that aspect heavier than we would, let's say, maybe based off of, technical risk or revenue potential. So we can weight these depending on where those priorities lie within your organization. And it will automatically calculate for us a weighted total and prioritize that as maybe high, medium, or low. So this is just an easier way for folks to be able to communicate that and prevent what I've commonly seen where everything needs to be high priority. So this could be a more objective way for you to do that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over into our grid view just to showcase that as these projects are approved, as we think about approving some of these projects and kicking off the work, that we are indeed able to kind of automate that process here for us. All right. I did want to just quickly call out as well, since somebody brought this up in the questions, is that we can start to run calculations within our sheet, which can also serve to help us. So you'll see here this weighted formula that I used. So there may be folks out there familiar with Excel. We do have capabilities where we can build in these formulas and automatically calculate in this example, what is the overall priority, and use those and surface these metrics in our dashboard. So again, just wanted to call out here that as these things change, so as we change our scoring, everything here is updating in real time. So again, as we think about ensuring that our data is fresh, rest assured, as the information changes in the sheet, it will automatically update all of our reports and our dashboards for us. Okay, so once we've assigned and validated that everything is prioritized, we have our team members assigned, we can go ahead and kick off our project. So we're going to go in here and we're just going to approve. All right. And what I wanted to call out here, some of you may be familiar with Smartsheet Control Center. So I'm going to go ahead and just give this a quick refresh. And this is where we see a lot of our customers find a lot of value. So Control Center really acts as an automation engine. So as you're approving these projects, we can automatically kick off a toolkit with all of the templates you need to execute on that project work. So for project managers, this can help you create that standardization and automated reporting without having to manually compile that in maybe, let's say, a weekly slide presentation. It'll automatically update our portfolio for us and create some of these assets. So if we were to dig into this particular project plan, Control Center has automatically kind of stood up all of these assets for us. So as we take a look, again, we're going to quickly surface at the dashboard level important metrics. And the reason that I wanted to call out how important these dashboards are is because as our executive leaders are looking and trying to mitigate risk, as we're managing a portfolio of projects. So in this case, we have, over 40 in-flight projects, everything that's going on with our M&A team, procurement. We have a lot of moving parts. And so again, the value that these dashboards provide to our leadership team is we don't have to go digging around for a project charter to figure out what the goals are of a particular initiative. What are we hoping to achieve? Who's responsible? And where exactly are we in this particular project? So quickly and easily being able to communicate that up to your project sponsors and the executive leadership team or other committees is critical. And having something as simple as a project plan where your project managers will typically live and make those updates, this also becomes an easy way for us to communicate these updates in a way that is easy for different individuals to consume. So again, this is one of those more delightful features, but something that my executive sponsors greatly appreciated. Again, they didn't have to go looking through documentation. They could look right at the dashboard and know exactly where things were and if we needed to take action. All right, so I am going to call out that it is at the sheet level where our automations are built. So setting up those weekly reminders, alerting individuals when things are at risk. All of those are built from that sheet view that I just showed you. Again, everything's updated in real time, so you'll see that I'm going to be reaching out to Angie. In this particular case, I'm at the stage in this project where we need to start looking at vendors and scheduling demos. So I will be coordinating with Angie on the procurement side to help me select the best vendors to execute on this work. So before I hand this over to Angie to talk more about vendor scorecards and vendor management, Chaz, once again, I'm gonna open this up to you.
Sure, we'll
and
keep
see
it
if there's
brief
any
this
questions.
time. Katie, great demo. Wanted to call out a couple of themes in the chat. Got a few more questions about the recording. The recording will be provided. Everyone's going to go ahead and get that. But there was a comment about Control Center. Grateful to hear. We certainly think Control Center is incredibly valuable. As you can see, it's part of these solutions. Katie, the question though from a few folks is, are there any other advanced capabilities besides Control Center that were going on in the demo that you showed? Someone asked about OKR management. We didn't see that today, but I mentioned how data mesh is sometimes in place for those. Certainly Control Center. Was there anything else that was going on behind the scenes that folks should be aware of as they think about what their solutions might need?
That's absolutely great, Chaz. And absolutely 110% data mesh can be a great way to pool information across different sheets. I will say that this solution is primarily being driven by Control Center, given the standardized steps that is required for application for survey management. These were all being powered and tied together through Control Center. So everything you saw me do today is being powered by Control Center in that portfolio reporting. So as we kick off new initiatives, it'll automatically update. The other piece to call out is how do we pull data in from other systems, right? So Data Shuttle is another premium application that can help us pull in some of those official survey findings into Smartsheet, so we can easily track those survey findings to completion. So great question. And I'm sure Angie is actually going to go into more details about other ways that you can supercharge your solutions.
Let's go ahead and hand Angie.
All right, Angie, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Sweet. Let me share my screen. And get in slideshow mode. There we go. So as Katie mentioned, talking about sourcing, procurement, vendor management, some of the challenges that we hear across the board are the need to balance budget with high quality services. And so we will talk about how Smartsheet can help with that, along with making sure that everything you're procuring is aligned with standards or regulations, and making sure that you are monitoring your vendor performance to make sure that, you know, we've kind of created this continuous improvement loop. You're able to manage and monitor vendor performance, then it's going to also be really easy and seamless to make sure if something does go out of budget, we can reevaluate that or quickly understand how did that happen and address it before it becomes a bigger issue. So the two main pieces we will be looking at to manage this are going to be Control Center, which Katie's alluded to, and automations. Automations are part of core Smartsheet, but they are invaluable. With Control Center, the big pieces are being able to create visibility that is automated. So that automatic roll-up reporting with real-time data at the portfolio level, being able to drive consistency where whether it's a project toolkit like Katie was showing in our example, it's going to be a vendor evaluation toolkit or vendor contract and implementation toolkit, creating consistency so that we are matching apples to apples and not apples to oranges, but then being able to scale that. Everything we're showing you today can be done manually, but it is going to take a much larger manual effort. And along with that comes increased time, a decrease in efficiency, but also an increase in potential error. Obviously accidentally, but mistakes do happen, typos happen. And so by using automations, we're able to avoid a lot of that. The other piece is going to be these automated workflows. So I call it crockpot project management, but being able to set it and forget it so that we can get alerts, we can get notified, we can get ahead of risk before it becomes an all hands on deck situation. So with that, let's dive into, the demo. And what we're going to be looking at today, I will zoom in, I promise, I know it's small, but is a combination of vendor evaluation. So if there is a new vendor that we're trying to or thinking about onboarding, using Control Center to spin up and standardize that toolkit where we can start to create standardization around how we're evaluating our vendors and being able to then compare vendor to vendor to make those really smart decisions. If it is, we go through the evaluation process and decide to move forward with that vendor, then setting up an additional, essentially, project toolkit where we can standardize the implementation, getting that vendor in our system, making sure we have all of our T's crossed, making sure that compliance and regulations are being followed, and that everyone is aware at every point of the process what is happening. And then once they're in the system, being able to manage contracts, get ahead of them, get notified using automations when a contract is going to be expiring in 30 days or something like that, so that you're not ever taken by surprise. And because it's in Control Center, we have this automated portfolio reporting that is seamless. There is not a need to copy and paste. Again, we're not going to have potential typos. And while this is also great visibility for reporting, it's now also a communication tool because we can set up different permissions and kind of guardrails and access settings with both internal and different settings for external folks. We can now really easily communicate with vendors. I was working with one company and they have actually been able to work, like their customers prefer working with them. Granted, it is on the vendor side, but their customers prefer working with them because they use Smartsheet and because there is so much transparency and very clear communication on both parties at all points in the process. So we're going to start with this portfolio piece and see what that looks like, and then go back to the beginning and kind of walk through how we got there. So with that, let's actually dive in. This is that dashboard that Katie was showing. And what I love about Smartsheet is dashboards are great for highlighting data, metrics, updates, statuses, etc. They're also essentially a portal. We can create a centralized location where not only do people get the information they need, but they don't have to spend any time searching for the things that they need. We can make it really easy following, the old adage 3-click rule, making sure everything is available within 3 clicks or less, so that people aren't wasting time doing that. So here we're looking at an example of a portfolio dashboard where we can see all of our vendors in flight. We can see when we are onboarding them, what's the most recent one, that we need to start working on? And then what are vendors that maybe we're either offboarding, or we need to start to think about, do we need to re-up contracts or go through a renegotiation or anything like that? We can have some high level metrics about, again, submission requirements or priorities. If there's an approved vendor list, we can easily add quick links. Again, making sure this is a very centralized portal for folks. And then we can have everything in one place. So we can at any given time come to this dashboard and know exactly where all of our vendors are within the life cycle, whether that's the evaluation period and where are they within that process, whether it's implementation. So we can easily see we've got 2 vendors in progress during implementation, or whether it's vendors have already gone through all of that and now they're part of our in our contract system. We can break that down even further and do deeper dives, and we will come back and click into these to see what onboarding a vendor looks like through all of these different parts of this process. But like I mentioned, I want to go back to the beginning and highlight, how do we get here? How do we even start with getting vendors on board and into this process? So here I am linking out to, we call it a demand management, or in this case could be submission requirements, but a way for people to request that we work with new vendors. So we can create a really easy self-service portal where I can have a quick snapshot of all of the requests I've made, really saving time, where again, we've set guardrails where not everyone's going to have access to the entire list, but I can have access to certain things so that I'm not, pinging Katie and asking, where are we with this? Where's the update? Where is this in the queue? I can use this and let Katie keep working on with her day and not interrupt her. And I can continue to work with my day. If we fill this out, I can start to say, what we're working with. Oops. That was not it, but we'll say a company providing services and equipment. There we go. And we'll say it's supply chain, medical. And this is gonna be the very beginning, so it's part of the evaluation process. And we'll say due date of next week and submit. So one, that's really easy. People know exactly where to go, but then when it lands in the sheet itself, now we can have some automations running in the background. So I've already got one in here. Oops. Should be coming anywhere. We can see that this has been submitted, and we should have an automation running in just a second, asking for approval. So I don't even have to come into the sheet. I can just look at this and say, great, submission is ready for approval. I can go to my inbox. I can open this up. And so I never even have to go into Smartsheet. If we've got folks who are in meetings all the time, they're on the road, they can do this from their email, and they have everything they need right here to understand, is this something that we want to pursue evaluating or not? In this case, this is something we do want to review, so we're going to approve it. And that is going to update our intake sheet. Give this a little, there we go, refresh. And we'll see that has already been approved. And we have an automation saying that this has been approved by me. That's going to kick off another automation where it will say, we can say, one, this has been approved. But now if we've got different managers or different contacts in here, you can really set up a daisy chain of events where it's a request is moving from stage to stage or different parts of the process. So now I can open this up and say, if I'm a manager who needs to assign who's going to evaluate this vendor, I can open up this request. Just like with the approval, now I can go in, we've got that automated information already pulling from the intake sheet. And I can go ahead and I will assign this to myself. We are going to actually move this into in progress, and we're going to get working on it right away. And you'll notice that end date, again, already pulling from the intake sheet. I don't have to copy additional information if it already exists in Smartsheet. So that will update our intake sheet and pull in all of the information from there. And so that's really how we can leverage automations to make our lives a little bit easier. And then what Smartsheet does, that control center, so we're going to now automate this evaluation piece. And what that looks like, oops, sorry, I'll let me close these things as we're no longer needing them. Now we can look in and look what an actual potential scorecard might look like. Again, these are all customizable. This is just one example, but really wanted to highlight how easy it is. And what we can start to do is create some baselining. So even with a rubric, there's different people who are filling out the scorecards. So by creating visibility here, we can start to see, is there a large fluctuation in who is filling out this form and criteria? And do we need to maybe do some level setting or training with our teams internally on how we're evaluating folks? A lot of times what I see with customers is they've got the evaluation piece, down really well. They are, have a form where people are filling it out, and that's great, but I'm going to go ahead and fill this out with all 5s. But if we're not looking at kind of what is actually being submitted, then it's really hard to understand where those fluctuations are coming from if we're only ever looking at the averages of scores. So here we can see, here's that new evaluation I just submitted, and we can have some weighted criteria. So it doesn't have to be a one-to-one. You can really make this system your own. If there is different criteria that you care that's going to be a lot more heavily weighted, then Smartsheet can go ahead and build that using formulas. I think one of the questions I saw was, when do we use automation and formulas versus manual entry? I don't know, maybe my colleagues have a better answer, but there's not a straight, single answer. I would say the more you can automate without creating too much rigidity, then go ahead and automate it, because that eliminates the need for the potential for errors. And it also is really going to drive efficiency. So once this is all automated, I don't even have to check this. I can just really focus on our dashboard, and we'll see that this is now already updated with my information that I've just submitted. So we can start to really scale and making sure that we are, so we can see, like, this is throwing everything off. So either I need to have a one-on-one, or we need to make our rubrics a little more visible, or have some trainings to understand how we're evaluating our different vendors. And then if we evaluate a vendor and we decide we do want to move forward with them, that is then going to move us into the second toolkit. Again, we're going to create some automations where we don't have to re-enter data as we move from step to step. So if I go into this implementation toolkit now, it's going to be really easy to see what steps are needed to move this vendor into our system. So all of this is automatically pulling, again, from our intake sheet. We can see at a high level what are deliverables that are still not completed, what needs to get ahead, like what needs to get assigned, or what do we need to execute on. And if we look at the schedule itself, one thing to highlight is if we were pulling in a different vendor, if I were to type in and change this to a different vendor number, now all of that data changes, because we're really automating the process where we don't have to type things in. All of this is going to be pulled in for you. And that is really the power, of Control Center. And then similarly, if we wanted to say something was at risk, here we could easily have a formula that says, if this is, in the next 3 days and we're over budget, then automatically mark it at risk. if you and your teams are not quite that mature, we can meet you where you're at, and this can all be automated or done manually. So if I click that, that's at risk, that's then also similar to where we saw with the approval process, going to kick off an automation that says, this is at risk, please review it or make any updates. Just like I did with email before, we could also do this from email. I can add comments. So I could say, you know, at Katie. Oops. This is being worked on. And Katie will get updated. We can see there's that new comment right there. And so in the same way that you mentioned someone in maybe Teams today, you can do that in Smartsheet as well. And you can also respond from Teams or Smartsheet or email and have that all still captured in one place. So we're no longer tracking email threads. We're no longer tracking conversations or comments in a different system, and then all of our execution work in a spreadsheet somewhere else. We're creating a really seamless collaboration tool where everything is centrally located so that no one has to worry about where things are, you know, being stored. And we have this activity log where if we are needing to audit things, we can see everything right here for us. We can see all of the different changes, everything. We can filter for specific types of changes. So there's no longer wondering, how did we get here? Why was this decision made? Why did we decide to move forward with this vendor? It's all being captured there for you. And then the last piece is, once they're in your system, the contracts. Excuse me. And so being able to, again, leverage the power of Smartsheet to move from one piece to the other and create different levels of visibility. So while we were maybe looking at a single vendor, now we can look at all of the contracts for a specific vendor. Again, we can get alerted when things are expiring in the next 30 days so that we're really staying on top of everything. And we can start to go up or down in our views. So if we wanted to look at all contracts across all vendors, we could just as easily create that visibility in the same way that we have that portfolio visibility for vendors. So now I can see all of my contracts, when they're renewing, what's the value, what's the breakdown of spend, where is it going? So however whichever metrics are valuable for you, Smartsheet can do that. It's more determining of what decisions need to be made in order for you to be most efficient, in order for you to get your work done. So being able to create those different levels of visibility all the way from the highest down to the most granular. And with that, that is really the last piece, just summarizing some of the flexibility and different ways that utilizing both automations and control center really is going to improve visibility, really going to save time because of that visibility and efficiency, and making it easy to collaborate both internally and externally with any of your different stakeholder groups. With that, I will pass it, I believe, to Nate. Or pause for questions. Apologies. Sorry, Chaz.
Nope, quite all right, Angie. The chat has been pretty quiet. That was an excellent demo you provided, and I really appreciate the way you emphasized some of the questions that have been coming up. So to our audience, I hope everyone picked up on how to leverage processes within Sheets as well as Control Center across all of those pieces. Some of the questions about using various functions, like whether it should be user entered or formula entered. You saw Angie really bring a lot of that to life, as well as a lot of the structure there. For the individual asked a question about security and sharing parts of the solution, just wanted to emphasize that that was also brought up in Angie's section, the way that we can not only have workspaces or individual dashboards shared, that drillable experience, the way Control Center governs sharing against your individuals and groups. So I would just encourage folks to think about their own posture, think about the solutions that are needed, and think about all the different building blocks that you're hearing about today. Nate, go ahead and show what you've got there. Bringing those building blocks together for mergers and acquisitions.
Perfect. Thanks, Chaz. So I will go ahead and dive in here. Good afternoon. Today I'll be discussing how organizations leverage Smartsheet for mergers and acquisitions. And before we dive in, I want to talk a little bit about why this matters or why we're here to discuss this, right? And the healthcare and life sciences sectors are really at a pivotal juncture with M&A activity seemingly at an all-time high. Yet, despite the increasing frequency of these deals, data is showing that 30 or 40% of those transactions are delivering meaningful value. And this is largely due to the complexity of integration, operational alignment, and maintaining compliance in such a highly regulated environment. But if executed properly, the benefits of these can be exponential. Now, additionally, programmatic M&A structures, which involve smaller, more frequent deals, have been shown to deliver more consistent returns, yet they still require that meticulous coordination across multiple teams. And the challenges that we often hear from our customers is that they have a lack of standardized M&A processing. There's multiple stakeholders involved, both internal and external, where collaboration is challenging and can be even minimal. And then the lack of consistency in operational integration management as well. Now, Smartsheet is really uniquely positioned to help you navigate these by providing a single platform for management of the full M&A lifecycle. So Smartsheet helps ensure that all stakeholders are aligned, deadlines are met, and risks are mitigated, whether you're managing a large-scale merger or a series of smaller acquisitions. And Smartsheet's tools for collaboration, workflow automation, and even real-time reporting are designed to keep your projects on track and aligned with your strategic goals, right? So today we'll be exploring how Smartsheet can streamline your M&A process, reduce the risk of failure, and ultimately help you achieve that value that you're seeking from these transactions. So typically mergers and acquisitions have two distinct sides to them, right? So it's the deal and the integration side. So the deal encompasses the identification and approval of potential companies that align with its strategic objectives. And this includes extensive financial, legal, and operational due diligence, which is really just then leading to negotiation and eventual agreement on the deal's terms. And then integration is then the process of integrating the operations, the systems, the employees, and even the cultures of those two companies. And saying it like that sounds very simple, but that is a really long process that requires meticulous planning and execution. And as mentioned, Smartsheet can really help manage the entire life cycle from identification to deal to integration, no matter the size or scale, which, as you can see outlined linearly here, is really what we're going to be walking through today, right? So starting with that idea of targeting an organization in the context of the health and life sciences space here, right? When we think about where this may come into play, is just to throw out a few examples, this could be maybe a pharmacology apparatus is not sufficient, and maybe acquiring an organization that specializes in this is the best option to produce further efficiency and drive your business forward, right? Or maybe you're a medical device organization and you realize that you've got a missed market opportunity, or there's a gap in your offering, and you've identified an organization that would be a great fit to bring into your portfolio that could really help drive the financial results that may come from adding that additional product to your offering, right? Conversely, maybe you've got a sector of your business that's no longer, aligned or, impactful to your organization's vision. So that could be valuable to another organization to purchase, right? So you can think about some sort of a merger or focusing on a sale there, right? So either way, Smartsheet provides an area where those situations can be identified, reviewed, and managed, right? Now, when I open up this acquisition target sheet here, really think of this as your centralized management sheet for all high-level target company information. Now, there's a few different ways, right, to think about getting the information in here, where we can set up a form process, as my colleagues had showed a little bit earlier, to start to populate the sheet. Or we can even think about integrating to other tools, right? That could be maybe an ERP that you're leveraging, or Salesforce, for example, where we want data to flow directly into the associated workflows ultimately, right? This is really where the team can then identify and organize the key stakeholders, financials associated with this workflow, even start to think about running an analysis to see if this is truly a strategic fit based on, key questionings or criteria points that you're focusing on through the year. And then naturally, as we've talked about, you can then set up things like approval workflows overall to understand which organizations are going to be the best fit to target for a purchase or a merger. Now, from here, organizations have a lot of success taking this data and leveraging our dashboarding capabilities to simplify the view directly into that pipeline, where we can leverage a Smartsheet report, organize it based on how that analysis is actually going to stack up against one another. And then from there, we can then compare it directly to any in-flight deals where maybe you're identifying overlap in timelines, or there's risks associated with what the team is currently working on that need to be addressed first. We could even then think about starting to incorporate data around our team's capacity to take on additional work with our resource management tool. Now, that can come in the form of a utilization report, which can look over, the next 90 days, for example, to see how your various teams are utilized. Or maybe we want to see more of a high-level view of the capacity of our teams month over month, where if we're thinking about targeting an organization here, we can then look maybe 6 months into the future to see how our teams are currently stacked up and sort of what the availability looks like to take on additional work. Now, ultimately, what this does is it helps drive consistency and visibility into the pre-deal or target process that, as mentioned, is a consistent challenge for our customers. Now, once a target organization has been approved, it then moves into the deal side of the workflow where due diligence and negotiations begin. Now, for this, we actually recommend customers set up a separate sheet to manage only approved targets as a way to better organize information across the life cycle, like the one that you see here. And it's very similar to the sheet that we just looked at, as we can automatically pull in via automations information directly over to avoid duplicate data entry, and then finally organize any details or approvals as needed before we kick off the deal side of the workflow. Now, at this point, the team will then need the tools that provide a structured approach to managing these deals. So that could be things like a project plan, a deal dashboard, maybe a budget sheet, for example. And to do that, this is also another use case for where we can leverage what we've been talking about in a few different ways called Control Center to automate the creation of those tools and then automatically connect it to any existing reporting that has been set up as well, right? So focusing on an existing one today in the Medica deal here, this dashboard is an example of one of those outputs of Control Center that can be created for each deal. Now, in this case, it's auto-populated with a lot of that high-level information from the previous sheet, such as the name, key dates associated with the workflow, any contacts that we want to bring in, right? But this is really where the corporate development or strategy teams will live to see high-level information about where the deal stands. And like all dashboards that we've seen, these are completely configurable to the metrics that are important to the team, and that's something that we can work together on moving forward. But in this example, we're surfacing a lot of the high-level information about the health and status of the deal, any documents that need to be collected or reviewed, right? And then providing that key visibility into milestone performance or risks that the team needs to keep an eye on. Specific to the deal workflow, as synergies, which are better known as really cost savings or revenue opportunities, are identified, they can be summarized and tracked here for the team to start to visualize those, right? The main takeaway from this is that having this single and simplified view really helps the team ensure that the deal is remaining on track and that no steps are missed ultimately. Now, everything that we see here is being rolled up in real time from the more detailed work and information that's being tracked in the underlying sheets. And the team can navigate to those areas like the project plan where the task management will take place. And ultimately, users can come in here and efficiently make updates to any tasks they're assigned to, and maybe see where the bottlenecks are associated with various workflows to keep that deal progressing forward. Now, one of the major challenges that I mentioned is that organizations that are managing mergers and acquisitions faces really a lack of collaboration between all stakeholders, right? So Smartsheet provides access to the various assets or areas where that collaboration needs to take place via our sharing capabilities. So whether those users are internal or external to the organization, they will have the ability to come into sheets, reports, and dashboards to, either work, visualize, or start to make conclusions about what's going on across the various workflows. From there, as mentioned previously, our internal conversations tool can be leveraged, as well as our automation builder to help foster that collaboration and ultimately keep everyone informed about the important happenings associated with the deal or really any workflows within Smartsheet as a whole. Now, as the due diligence and negotiations are completed, the deal then moves into the next phase, right, which is the integration. Ultimately, the process of integrating the operations, the systems, employees, and cultures of the two companies, right? Now, the initiation of this will actually mirror the deal workflow, where we'll organize the information as needed in a centralized management sheet like this, and then we'll leverage Control Center to automatically generate the tools that the team will need to be successful here. So if we take the Radiance integration as our example, again, this dashboard being one of the outputs of Control Center for each integration being auto-populated from the information from that intake sheet that we just looked at. This is ultimately where the integration managers will live on a day-to-day basis to understand how their integration is performing. And it's a lot of similar themes in terms of the overall status, tasks, performance, or milestones that we want to see here. But what's most important with integrations is going to be the management of the individual work streams. Now, a work stream is the operational area of both organizations that need to be merged into one. Really challenging process that the Smartsheet platform can help the team manage. But ultimately, each widget that you see here is focused on a specific work stream. And in this case, this integration isn't performing so well, right? So what the team will have the ability to do is focus on the HR work stream specifically, and then go in and understand, right, where the activities are being defined to see that work stream through. But more importantly, quickly understand what needs to be done to get things back on track, right? So very similar across both the deal and integration sides, but just specific to the information that's important for just that workflow and ultimately the teams that will be aligned to those various sides of the mergers and acquisition processes. Now, across both the deal and integration workflows here, Smartsheet's core capabilities and Control Center will really provide the foundation for that consistency in M&A processing. That is really the #1 challenge for organizations when they come to us and talk about the challenges that they're trying to solve for. That's the one that we hear the most as it relates to mergers and acquisitions here. Now, across the entire life cycle, leadership visibility is going to be paramount. So what can that start to look like within Smartsheet? So this is where that concept of portfolio reporting comes back into play. And really what we're looking at here is more of an executive level view that sits on top of what's happening across both the deal and the integration sides of the mergers and acquisitions workflow. Really just providing that quick and impactful real-time view into how everything is performing, right? So a lot of customers will have success for callouts like risks associated with the various workflows, the health or volume metrics across both sides being deal and integration, right? And as we start to scroll down, even things like budget performance, but more importantly at this level is that leadership will have the ability to see information about all deals in flight as well as all integrations in flight. So if they wanted to identify any risks associated with that, or maybe understand how things are trending across their various workflows, they have the one spot to come in a centralized dashboard like this versus having to ask for that information or wait for it to be rolled up to them via, PowerPoints or PDFs, for example. Now, one of the great things about Smartsheet is that you'll have the ability to create layers or sub-portfolios, really. So let's say I'm a leader that's interested in understanding a little bit more in depth about what's going on with the deal side of our workflow here. In a single click, I can now drill down into the individual deal portfolio view that's rolling up information across all in-flight deals, right? And this can be persona-based, so maybe I actually lead the deal side of our M&A process. This is just where I may live on a day-to-day basis. So really valuable across multiple levels of management, depending on what they're trying to do with the information here. And further expanding on that drill down capability, specifically to leaders for limited time in their day, it's important for them to be able to quickly find the information that they need. So if I want to understand, right, which 4 deals are at risk, it's a simple click to be able to understand that, right, who's assigned to it, so I know who to reach out to and be able to provide that leadership oversight and support where needed. Okay. Now, as I've mentioned previously, the deal side requires a lot of due diligence and meticulous tracking of that. So Smartsheet's real-time reporting capabilities are going to be really impactful in giving your team the ability to see across all deals high-level metrics about what's important. Now, typically that's things like the documentation status or financial performance, right? Maybe savings that are starting to be identified across the various operational areas. And you can start to create different flavors of that, right? So that's whether that's a Smartsheet report or easy to digest chart widgets. Either way, the most important thing to keep in mind is that the information is being updated deal by deal and automatically rolls into your existing reporting structure here. Now, as you can see within this report, I would then have the ability to get down to that base layer being the individual deals or integrations, depending on what side of the workflow you're sitting on, right? Now, in line with the integration side, that same functionality from a drill down perspective falls into that as well, where I can filter out the noise from all in-flight deals and just focus on the integration side of our business, right? And again, we're surfacing a lot of that same information, but in this case, most importantly, we've got quick callouts for each individual work stream across those to say, okay, which ones are we, not performing well in, which ones are we doing great in, right? It's a simple view, but really impactful information from a red, yellow, green status that you can start to pull out from that. Okay. Now, the big and major benefit of Control Center here is that as you're provisioning a new deal or integration toolkit, it will automatically connect those to your existing reporting structure. And that's really just ensuring that leadership is seeing the most accurate and up-to-date information at all times here. Okay. Now, there were some questions earlier about some of the maybe underlying sheets that are powering these and how those may be structured. So I wanted to just show a quick example of what a true metric sheet in Smartsheet can look like that powers a dashboard like we're looking at here. So one of the benefits of Control Center is that as an output, we can start to create these individual roll-up sheets where we're getting into the back end a little bit ultimately, but you can have a line per integration or deal that's pulling in live metrics from the underlying work that's being done in a really just sort of a master data sheet. And then from there, we can then create a portfolio metric sheet to be formula driven where we're doing sum if, count if off of those various sheets to bring in the live metrics that's powering those visuals that you've been seeing up to this point, right? So if I come back up to my executive view, these various widgets are all pointed at those underlying metric sheets ultimately. Okay, so I know we're getting towards the end of time here. So one thing that I just want to leave you with, right, and why customers think about choosing to partner with Smartsheet is that really it's a tool that provides consistency across the entire M&A lifecycle while providing that transparency to all key stakeholders at the right level of detail that's needed to efficiently progress forward. And there's really 3 positive outcomes that we'll hear from organizations that partner with us for their M&A processes. So, right, the ability to accelerate and expand the pipeline, evaluations, and ultimately the closings, right? Achieving more efficient integrations, which allow you to realize that ROI faster. And then the automation that Control Center provides helps reduce things like fees by nearly 33%. And that could be things like legal fees, as an example, which can equate to hundreds of thousands of dollars in annual savings. That will wrap up my part. I appreciate the time. Hopefully that was helpful. And I think we've got some additional time to close out with any questions at this point.
Thanks, Nate. So I'm just going to do a quick closing. Want to give a quick plug for our upcoming Engage conference. It's a great way to meet with other healthcare and life sciences businesses, really do some networking, understand how they're utilizing Smartsheet for similar use cases. Your account manager can connect you with different teams that are doing stuff that's similar to you. You have healthcare breakout sessions. It's truly invaluable. If you are interested in going, definitely reach out to your account manager. I also am going to throw up a quick feedback form. You can utilize the QR code to submit that through us, and we will continue to answer questions as they go. We'll also be getting out the recording to everyone who's joined today. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, team, for your support on this, and looking forward to hearing from everyone.